Hey solos, happy birthday to me. Happy unbirthday to you. And welcome to this bonus solo story episode, #birthday edition. Because the listenership has grown so much with the podcast over this summer, and because today is my actual birthday, I thought it'd be a perfect opportunity to kind of reintroduce you to me so you know who your host is. Olaf may not know who Samantha is, but I want to make sure that you do. And I wanted to reintroduce myself to you, tell you a little bit about my solo story so you know a little bit about the things that go into the ideas and like editorial that I do for this podcast. So thanks for listening. And again, thanks for your birthday wishes. I know that you're wishing them in your head, and I wish you a happy unbirthday as well. As always, you can check the link in the description of this podcast to find the links to Instagram and Threads and Facebook. And you can wish me happy birthday on those yourself, obviously. But you can also just follow me on those different platforms. I am currently in Walt Disney World, not when I'm recording this, but when you're listening to this. And so I'm sure I'll have posted a lot of things on my stories and stuff about all of the birthday adventures I am getting up to on my semi-solo trip to Disney World. And you can also listen to this on Apple, Spotify, and on YouTube, but you know at least one of those three things. And please, again, make sure you subscribe and rate and review and share around. So let's get into it. Okay. So I did do a little introduction to me when I first started the podcast, but like a lot of the different kind of media ventures that I've done, the first few episodes are always very slow and very methodical, and I just really want to make sure everyone can hear. And there's like no, there's no like excitement or like real, I don't know, joie de vivre that I think comes through in these later episodes. So I wanted to make sure that you didn't have to go back through the archives to be able to find out who I am. I wanted to tell you about who I am today. So first, I'm a Virgo, as you can tell. And as I talk about, I think on the episodes a lot, I am an elder millennial. Today, I'm turning 42. I am white. I am cisgendered. I am straight. I am currently single. I was partnered for a long time, but we separated. It was a common law relationship. So in particular parlance, I should say I'm divorced, but legally I'm not. I have no children. I'm a childless cat lady and very proud of that. And my goal in life is really to be that blend between Lady Tremaine and the lady from Aristocats who's just like #loving my cats. You know what I mean? I have a couple of graduate degrees. My background is in education as well as history, as well as critical theory. So you'll hear that I just can't help but doing some historical stuff and some kind of critical theory stuff in some of the episodes. And I like pull myself back and I'm like, no, that's not what we're doing here. Like, don't do the whole thing. But it is kind of funny when I was like, I can't not say it. I did one episode, a solo story with Christy, who's from California, and she does Disneyland a lot, and she, like, her Instagram name is PH Disney, like PhD Disney, and it was really awesome to have that conversation with her because we were able to talk about what it's like to be in academia, which is very heavy, very weighty, very, it takes itself very seriously, and then to be able to have Disney on the side as something that we do as a way to kind of counterbalance that. And it was really, really great to have those conversations. If you actually understand kind of like that balance between academia and Disney, it would be awesome to talk with you too. So let me know about that. But that's kind of how my solo story started. So growing up, we went to Disney. It wasn't like a, common every year, like Disney vacation destination. That wasn't really our background, but we lived in Florida for a while. We lived in California for a while. So Disney was always like a place that we went to. Like it was like a special thing that we did, but it didn't take up all of our vacation time. We actually moved a lot when I was a kid, so we didn't actually have a lot of like quote unquote summer vacation. We were living in Florida in the early 90s, and one of the things I talk about a lot is going to MGM Studios in 1992 and 1993, and that was during this period, and it really, really solidified some really interesting memories for me when I was 10, and that's when we went to Universal Studios. And if you know those histories, you know that like both Universal Studios and MGM Studios opened opened like a few years before 1992, 1993. So there's just something about those two parks and those like the excitement of the opening of those parks that I really just like, I can't escape, even though like actually I haven't been to Universal Studios since that trip. I think it would be too hard to be like, where's all the Nickelodeon Studios stuff? Because that's what we did in 1993. But MGM Studios still, like, I just really want to capture that excitement of the Hollywood that never was and always will be. Like, do you remember how just awesome that Honey, I Shrunk the Kids playground was? Like, look, I don't think that they should still have it. I'm sure it was very dirty and kids don't know that story anymore. But that was a pretty cool thing. You know what I mean? So, yeah, anyway, so Disney was kind of part of childhood, but it wasn't a huge part of childhood. And then when I was partnered in my early 20s, he and I went to Disney a few times, and it was like, look, he always had an amazing time, and we still talk today, and he won't tell you otherwise, but it was always such a slog to go. And, you know, I really reflect on the experiences now, even though it was 15 years ago. I really reflect on those experiences now because that is such a good example of somebody who really wants like everything that Disney has to offer, the joy, the magic, the excitement, the fun, all of that. And then having to like drag somebody who's not really into it. Now, again, he always had a really good time. It didn't feel like a drag once we were there, but it's all that planning. It's all that thinking, you know, that it gets so frustrating. So the last vacation with him, with a partner, was in 2014. And then, you know, whatever, life, blah, 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 blah. And then fast forward to 2020, before the pandemic, I went to Disney with my mom after a conference that I had in Jacksonville. And when she comes with me, it is like, it's just to like allow her to come to Florida. She just really wants to do Florida. And then once we were there in January of 2020, or excuse me, February of 2020, she was like, oh my God, I love like the customer service and all of that. So we just had this most amazing time. And then COVID happened. And it was one of those things because we went to Disney literally 2 weeks before everything shut down. It was one of those memories that we really held on to. And really, ever since the parks reopened in 2021, that is when my adult Disney travel really kind of ramped up. I'm now an annual pass holder because like, I mean, I guess it just makes financial sense at this point, you know? And just if you are doing the math, the annual pass makes sense. Like I only have one option of the annual pass available to me since I am not a Florida resident. And the math makes sense if you do 2 trips, at least 2 trips that equal 11 days, park hopper days in the park. That is when it makes sense. So if you do 11 days on one trip, it doesn't make sense because the cost of the park tickets decrease the more days that you go. And if you go over 3 trips and do 11 days, it also makes a lot of sense. But the minimum is 2 trips where it's like 11 park hopper days. That's when it makes the most financial sense. And I've really loved being an annual pass holder because for me, it allows me to go in and out of the parks with a lot of like casualness. There is less pressure to like, oh, well, should I do this park? Should I spring for park hopper? So it's really nice just to have the freedom and the knowledge that I can go to any park whenever I want, even though I am living in Canada and I don't really get there as often as I would like. Gosh, when I do the solo stories with people from Florida and they're like, oh yeah, I just like popped by after work, rode Guardians of the Galaxy and ate some really good food and then just went home. I'm like, oh gosh, you people are awesome. You're wonderful, but also I'm jealous. So yeah, right now I'm going about 5 to 6 times a year, which gosh, it does sound like a lot. Usually they are these long weekend trips, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and it's been really awesome. A lot of them are like semi-solo trips. Well, excuse me, the trips when I do like 4 days, those are all solo trips. If I do a week or 5 days, sometimes I'll say to my mother, like, do you want to come to Florida? Like, do you want to come as well? And then those are semi-solo trips. So she does her own thing, I'll do my own thing, and we'll meet up maybe for a meal or whatever during the day. But I think the reason why I've been going so much the last couple years is because the work that I'm doing, like in my 9 to 5, it doesn't have things like community or creativity or like happiness or fun. It doesn't have those elements that I really, really want in my normal life because just of the nature of the work. Like, it's not from lack of trying solos. I try to bring that stuff into work all the time, but because of the nature of the work that I do and the people that I work with, like, those elements are not necessarily prioritized. And I mean, I completely understand it. So to be able to go somewhere where it is creative, where everyone is pointed in the same direction, which is having a magical vacation, where everyone is like generally pretty happy, where there are things like customer service, where you're taken care of, like as an elder daughter, as an elder millennial, as a single woman, like there are very few examples in my life where people are just like taking care of me. And so to be able to go to a place where it is focused on care of the customer, of the visitor, it is just such a nice like mental relief. And so when I started the podcast, I started it for a couple reasons. One, because I joined this Facebook group, which I talk about on the podcast all the time. You should also join it. That is all about Disney solo travel. And when I was seeing other people talk about how amazing their solo trips were, and when I saw other people say like, "Oh, I'm thinking about doing it. Do you think I should?" And other people being like, "Yes, do it, do it, do it." It became like the highlight of my social media landscape. It was just so wonderful to see a stream of people embracing such happiness, embracing such self-care, embracing the magic of Disney, no matter what situations or people they have in their life that might dissuade them from doing that. And I was like, yes, that's why I love it so much too. And so, the Facebook group is so wonderful, and people share their stories and they ask for advice and all that stuff. And that's really wonderful. But I also realized that there could be an opportunity, and that's why I started the podcast, of like having these conversations that can talk about things like healing and self-care and what it actually, like the deeper ideas of going to Disney solo, to then think about, like, yeah, at my work, I can't be creative and I can't really like think about having a lot of fun because of the heavy nature of the work that we're doing. What does it look like to take care of yourself and take care of that need that you have? Oh, that might mean going to Disney. And that's why doing the solo stories have been so exciting and so important to me too, because I realize that that is so close to so many people's experiences going solo. So yeah, I mean, I don't think I'll be able to do as many solo stories as we move into the fall and winter because of the nature of the academic year. But like that is definitely my focus of the conversations that we have. That's always that element of just going deeper and like knowing what you want, taking care of yourself, embracing the things that you feel that you need. And I think for a lot of people, like that's what a solo vacation to Disney is about. And it's just really amazing and exciting to see people like grab hold of that, and I even though my bank account might not love it, I've also been really proud of myself that I've been able to do that as well and found that outlet. And, as a single woman, I also don't drive. I love traveling by myself. I've done it a lot, especially for conferences, and then I'll like do a few other days in the city. Like I'm not a stranger to traveling alone or doing things alone, but there is an extra safety to Disney that makes those vacations just like ones that I can really rely on for taking care of myself. And again, yeah, I'm really proud of myself for doing that despite what my bank account might say. All right, well, what else might you want to know about me? I'm just like thinking of like what's some information you might want to know that doesn't seem like overly weird and indulgent. Well, I guess like non-Disney things that I really like. I really love soul music from the 1950s. I really love the vintage aesthetic of the 1950s and 60s. A lot of my clothes are, 1950s and 60s kind of references and nods. That's why I love Dapper Day, because I got to dress up and do all of that with a community of people that love it. So that's really awesome. I really love Broadway musicals and musicals generally, not necessarily the Disney ones. I haven't seen a Disney musical that I thought blew my socks off, which is surprising. I guess actually not surprising. They don't need to work that hard for their musicals. But I mean, like Hamilton, I loved. And Juliet, I loved. Book of Mormon, despite, being a little problematic, is also hilarious. and I loved it. So I'm also a big fan of musicals. I'm a reader, a nonfiction reader. Obviously, a lot of my work is very academic. I'm writing a book about ghosts. It's an academic book. It's about actually history education and ghosts. But so sometimes you'll hear me like randomly say the word haunted a lot in a podcast episode, and that's because I've spent the day writing. But I also read a lot of fiction. Violetta Amongst the Stars was one of my favorite books that I read last year. And I don't really love a lot of young adult fiction, although I did interview Farrah Roshan, who does a lot of the Twisted Tales from Disney, which is a young adult series. And that was an amazing conversation, and I really loved her Disney books. But I'm always looking for Disney books, or I'm always looking for novels that really kind of reference certain elements of Disney. So I have this book called Uprooted that I'm hoping to have read or either on the plane or during the vacation that I have currently at Disney, because it is supposed to be kind of a reimagining of a fairy tale. And so I'm very, I don't want to say discerning reader, that makes me sound snobby, but I'll open a book and I'll just be like, oh, this is the book for me. I love it. I can't wait to read it. And then there are other books where I'll read a few pages and I was like, ugh, no, thank you. So it's kind of difficult for me sometimes to find books. So please, I asked you all on Instagram one time, like, tell me what you're reading. And I got some really cool, like, book lists from that. I think I should do that again because, yeah, it's really interesting when you have a community of people that are kind of interested in one thing, and then you say, like, well, what are the other things we might be able to share with each other? So I should do that again. Those were such really cool suggestions, solos. And I've thought about if the podcast grows, like it would be cool to have something like a Patreon and to have chat rooms where people could share those things. And we're certainly not at that point right now, but it would be really awesome again to be able to have all these people, these really cool people, like all of you solos are so cool to come together to be able to share these other aspects of your life that, again, you might not be able to share quite as readily with like your main group of people. And that can be frustrating and isolating sometimes, but it can also be such a special way to like remind yourself who you are. And I don't know, maybe one day we'll do a Patreon, but we're not at that point right now. Especially because I just don't have capacity to create more content. All right, what else? Well, I think you know that if you've listened to any of the podcasts that I am definitely like a princess, classic Disney type of a woman. I'm drawn to the princesses more than I am in any other sort of like IP or particular stories. I'm not interested in Star Wars. I'm not interested in Avatar. I'm not really interested in Toy Story, but whatever. I'm fine with Toy Story or whatever. I've never ridden Ride of the Resistance, and that is because I kind of want to wait for somebody to ride it with who is totally into Star Wars. So I think that's like a good example of that balance between solo travel and doing Disney with other people. Like if your enjoyment can be enhanced because you're with other people, then yeah, do those things. But that doesn't replace a Disney trip. Your own either. Like I have a lot of friends who have children that have been thinking about doing Disney trips, and I was like, oh yeah, well, you're gonna ruin my Disney trip if you bring your kids. A friend of mine was like, well, you can do a couple Disney days by yourself before and after if you wanted to come and do the trip with the kid. And I was like, oh yes, that's how we're gonna do it. But I do think like going with kids would be, oh my gosh, amazing and magical. But I'd also be like, oh no, sorry, this is what we eat in the middle of the day. We don't eat like whatever. So yeah, I'm open to going with other people, but it is to add to the trips that I have. It doesn't replace the solo trips that I have. So like I said, I am currently at Disney. I'm staying in the Wilderness Lodge cabins, not the new DVC ones, but just the regular cabins. Last year, it was like a goal of mine. It was one of those things I really wanted to do and I had a great time. We're replicating that for my semi-solo birthday trip this year. I'm really into that. I'll be back at the beginning of December for like the Christmas party, which I've never been to before, and the International Festival of the Holidays at Epcot, which I'm really excited about. And maybe there'll be a fall trip to Disney as well. We'll see. But right now it is the August Labor Day trip and then the beginning of December. And then it will be January. And January is so cheap. I love it so much. And it will be the International Festival of the Arts, which is one of my favorite festivals when it comes to food. All right, there you go. Happy birthday to me. Happy unbirthday to you. Thanks for listening to the solo story, and thanks for listening to all the episodes of Disney Solo Magic. Again, it's just been so, so wonderful. Now, I do have a little birthday present for you solos. Sorry, what was that I said? A birthday present for you? Yes, I do. I created a Spotify playlist that really represents Disney Solo Magic energy, and I have made it public for you. I made it a few months ago. I don't really use Spotify that often, so hopefully I did it right, but I have saved it to give it to you as a birthday present from me for my birthday. I'm sure that makes sense. So if you know a song that you want to have on that playlist that is not currently on that playlist, please let me know. I'm happy to add it. And when I created the playlist, I really created it from songs that I thought really represented Disney Solo Magic, but also it represents some of the songs that you gave me during the summer. There were a few times where I was hiking and I went on Instagram and I said, what's a song that you think like represents Disney Solo Magic? And those songs I added to the playlist as well. So happy birthday. Excuse me. Happy unbirthday to you. Happy birthday from me. I hope you enjoy the playlist. I hope you can add it to your repertoire of music listening. And anyway, happy unbirthday. On Tuesday, there is going to be a new episode that's going to focus on what it's like to celebrate your birthday at Disney solo. And so please make sure you listen to that. I won't have been able to reflect on my current birthday experiences because I will still be at Disney when that episode is aired. But it would be really, really awesome for you to let me know how you celebrate your birthdays at Disney and whether or not you think that I've missed anything. So all right. Have a wonderful rest of the weekend, everyone. Oh, what was that? Oh, thank you for your birthday wishes. As you can tell, I love a good birthday. Bye. Hey Solos, it's Samantha. I hope you enjoyed this episode as well as all the episodes of Disney Solo Magic. It has been so wonderful to create this podcast content for you and to help build this community of conversations about solo travel to Disney. And I really, really thank you for participating in the conversation. It would be even extra awesome if you could participate in the conversation by letting other people know that this conversation is happening. Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast, rate it, share it with others, and even providing a review helps the algorithm let other people who are interested in Disney content find out about this podcast. You can also find me on Instagram, Threads, and Facebook, although Instagram is the best way to get in touch with me. My Instagram handle is Disney_solo_magic_podcast. And you can find links to all that social media content in the description of this podcast below. Thank you again for sharing the magic of solo travel to Disney, and I can't wait to keep creating content for you. Bye!